Okay, well, welcome to class. This is week 8 of marine biology. It is truly amazing to me that we are almost at the end of this class. What I'd like to do first is just make sure everyone can hear me. Oh, hold on one second. Let me type here. So just a simple yes or no. Are you able to hear me? My pencil's flying everywhere at my house. I can see you guys have been talking about, uh-oh, Mallory. Go ahead and make sure that your speakers aren't muted. Okay, it seems like Mallory's having a little trouble hearing me, so I just want to try and see if she can make sure her speakers aren't muted. We'll give her a second to try to get figured out here. Hopefully she's going to write in the text chat that, yes, she can hear me. All right, let's see. Okay, so we're going to give Mallory a second to hopefully join us here. Go ahead, Victoria.
Miss Berg, I've always wondered, what is the little map with the A's in the bottom of the screen? What is that?
That's a great question, Victoria. At the bottom of your screen, on the bottom left-hand corner, you should be able to see, it's a map of the, well, it depends where you are, a map of the area of the world you are located in. If you click on it, on the map, there's a zoom in and a zoom out button. If you zoom all the way out, I think we are all in the U.S. in this class. So if you zoom out, you can see everybody and you can move around the map. Everyone has an A, and if you hover your mouse over the A, you should be able to see the person's name. So for instance, I can see that Victoria and Jamie are on the West Coast. And if you look at the H, which is me, you can see that I am in Connecticut. Now, it doesn't necessarily show exactly where you are. It just shows where you registered the account to. Okay, so while we are waiting, oh, maybe you guys can only see yourselves. Maybe you can only see yourself on the map. Maybe if you zoom out, can you see that I'm in Connecticut? Can you see one with an H? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me get a phone number for Mallory so she can call because I do not know how to fix her issue. Hold on 1 second, Mallory. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why you can't see her then, Victoria. Okay, so. Okay, guys, if you could just hold on 1 second and stop writing in the text chat for me. Guys, please stop writing in the text chat. Oh, you can hear me now. All right, fantastic. I was just typing in the phone number for you, Mallory. Okay, great. Now that we're all here and we can all hear, welcome to week 8 of marine biology. We are going to start class off today by reviewing the end of last week. Now, last week we talked about sea turtles. And what I want to do today is I just want to review some sea turtle characteristics and threats to sea turtles, which was part of your homework. So, in the first box, we are going to write characteristics. In the second box, you are going to write threats. I'm unlocking all of your whiteboards as we speak. So go ahead, I'm going to give you guys about 3 or 4 minutes. List anything that you can in either or both of these boxes. All right, the ideas you have up here, guys, are great. Keep them coming. All right, these are fantastic up here. Finish writing the one that you are working on. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we have up here. So far up here, we have under the characteristics of sea turtles, we have a carapace is the upper shell. Very good. The plastron is the lower shell. Perfect. Oh, don't delete them. Don't delete them. You have scutes are things that make up the shell. Leatherbacks are the biggest sea turtle. Good job, Brayden. They have salt glands behind their eyes. Fantastic. They like to swim. They do like to swim. They have a light underside and a dark upper shell. Very good, Victoria. And the name, if you remember what that is called, that has a special name. That special name is counter shading. Oops. All right, what else do we have up here? We have Threats Are Gases and Boats by Mallory. Good job. We'll put a little arrow so we know where it goes. Garbage, waste, and water pollution are a threat. Fantastic, Victoria. We also have Animals and People Can Hurt the Sea Turtles. Wonderful, Eric. We have They Will Eat Plastic Bags Because They Think They Are Jellyfish. Good job, Haley. And Braden put up here ship damage and getting stuck in human nets. Great, Braden. Now, if you remember from class, there's lots of things that humans are doing to protect turtles. We are doing different beach cleanups. They have special entrapment or turtle entrapments on nets that fishermen use so that the turtles can swim out of the nets. And we are working on better ways to get rid of our waste than dumping them in the water. So fantastic job and memories about sea turtles. Now, what we are going to do today is we are going to switch focuses completely. We have been spending class talking about specific animals each day. We spent a day on bony fish. We spent a day on sea turtles. We spent 2 days on marine mammals, and we spent a day on chondrichthyes, or sharks. Today we are going to look at an entire ecosystem and how those animals interact with each other to make an ecosystem. So let's, on our whiteboard again, let's come up with some ecosystems. What are some marine ecosystems? Okay, what I'm looking for, an example would be a excuse me. An example would be a coral reef. Go ahead and come up with your own examples. Go ahead, Victoria.
Don't really know what you mean with the marine ecosystem and how you put coral reef. I'm still a little confused.
Okay. Well, we've been looking at specific animals each week. This week and next week, we are going to look at an entire ecosystem or an entire group. Like a terrestrial or a land ecosystem would be a forest, a grassland. A marine ecosystem is a coral reef. Okay, whoever put polar region, those are marine ecosystems. Another marine ecosystem could be a beach. A shipwreck someone's writing about. Great, that is a very good marine ecosystem. Okay, another marine ecosystem could be the deep sea. Basically, a marine ecosystem is an area where fish, marine mammals, sharks, where they all interact with each other. So any of these would be perfect. Oh, someone's writing a fancy word up here. Very good. The euphotic zone. Great job. Go ahead, Mallory.
My computer is messing with me, and I can't do anything. You're creeping up on me.
Maybe you try logging off and then logging back in. I'm not sure what you mean by it's not letting you do things, but a lot of times logging off and back in fixes everything. So that would be my suggestion. So we're going to look at marine ecosystems today. We are going to start by looking at the coral reef. So coral reef biome or ecosystem. Here's a little picture of a coral reef. There's fish, there's anemones, there are corals. All of these are located in a coral reef. It's a group of animals, plants, organisms living together. Sort of like your family at your house. You all interact with each other. If you have pets, they're part of your family. They're part of how your house operates. That's a different way to look at an ecosystem, an area and how it operates. So let's take a look at what is a coral reef. Well, a coral reef is a structure formed by coral polyps, which are tiny animals that live in colonies. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have ever seen a coral reef, either snorkeled on a live coral reef or seen one in an aquarium. All right, it looks like we have some good three, maybe half of us have seen one. Does anyone want to share a description of what a coral reef is or what you saw on the coral reef? Haley, go ahead.
I was snorkeling in Hawaii and we swam over a coral reef and we saw jellyfish, sea turtles, anemones, and a giant clam.
All right, great. Those are all things, organisms, that you could find on a coral reef. Does anyone else want to share what they saw on a coral reef or what they have seen pictures of on a coral reef? Mallory, go right ahead.
I have seen little small fish, tiny organisms, jellyfish, a sea turtle, a couple sea turtles, and for some reason I found a stingray in there, which freaked me out.
Awesome. Fantastic. Victoria, go right ahead.
I think they're called barnacles, but I've seen barnacles on a coral reef, and these little things that, like, if you put your finger, like, in their little hole, they, like, suck up. It's really weird. But, yeah, they're a type of sea anemone, and I've also seen that felt that they are very rough, but depending on the type of coral, it could be a different texture.
All right, fantastic. Mallory, go ahead. Do you have something to add?
I also seen some barnacles, and I could see the animals inside the barnacles. I could see little hairs popping out, and as they were getting out, from the water, I found a bunch of these barnacles on shore after I went snorkeling.
All right, great job. Thank you guys for sharing your observations of coral reefs with us. Coral reefs are made up of coral, which at one point were live animals. Coral polyps, which I'm wondering if maybe some of you who are referring to barnacles maybe are talking about these coral polyps. Coral polyps are hard, stony, some of them are branched, some of them look like rocks, structures made out of limestone. Basically, they're the shell of the coral that was alive. Coral reefs are built when these new coral animals attach to the old coral reefs, and they grow and get larger. There's a couple of different types of coral reefs. Fringing reefs are platforms of coral that extend from the shore into the sea. If you've been snorkeling and you stood on the beach when you started and swam out to the coral reef, then you were snorkeling on a fringing reef, most likely. A barrier reef is like the Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest reef. Barrier reefs follow the shape of the shore, but are separated from the shore by water. You would have to swim over an area of sand or an area of rock before you get to the reef. An atoll is what I think is the neatest type of coral reef, and it is a ring-shaped island of coral in the open ocean. They form on submerged mud banks or volcanic craters. They're surrounded by a lagoon, and they have a small channel that connects the lagoon to the open ocean. They are very, very rare, and most of them are in the Pacific Ocean. This picture shows the coral reefs in the world. Go ahead and take a look at the yellow. Oh, I froze. Hold on one second. Let me stop my video for a couple minutes and then I'll come back to it. The coral reefs are the yellow pieces out in the middle of the ocean. They are offshore. If you look on the far left in the Pacific Ocean, off the Pacific coast, you can see atolls. Coral reefs are usually found near land in shallow, warm, salt water. They need lots of light. Water needs to be tropical in temperature, averaging between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I just went ahead and turned my video back on. Go ahead and let me know if everything looks okay. Most corals cannot survive below 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little here, and we are going to talk about the Great Barrier Reef, which is the world's largest coral reef. Has anyone here ever been to the Great Barrier Reef? Neither have I. It's just always amazes me that people get to go there, and it's one of the places I would love to go. So I always like to ask. The Great Barrier Reef is over 1,257 miles long. It's off the northeast coast of Australia, and the Great Barrier Reef only grows about 1 inch per year. That would be fun, Haley. Does anyone want to read this slide for me about the Great Barrier Reef? Oh boy, go ahead, Mallory.
1,500 species of fish, 400 different types of coral, 4,000 mollusks, 500 species of seaweed, 215 species of birds, 16 species of sea snakes, yes, 6 species of sea turtles. Whales visit during winter. That seems like fun.
Thank you so much. Now, if you look at this, there are tons of different species that live on the Great Barrier Reef and can interact with each other, either by being a predator or prey, or by coexisting nicely. Last week, we talked about symbiosis. The Great Barrier Reef is an excellent spot for examples of symbiosis. Now, I keep saying coral reefs are made up of an organism. So let's try to figure out what a coral reef creature is. A coral reef creature is made up of a coral polyp that has tentacles, all right, sorry guys, I'm not sure what's going on with the video. I turned my video off, so if you can still see me, just make the PowerPoint slide larger so you can see it better and ignore the fact that I'm frozen on your screen. So coral polyps have tentacles that stick up. These tentacles reach out to try to get food. They have a digestive sac. When the polyps get food, they digest it, they bring it somewhere, and they have a hard skeletal body. As I mentioned before, there are lots of coral reef creatures that have symbiotic relationships. Corals have a symbiotic relationship with the algae. It's a mutualistic relationship. They both rely on each other to coexist. Last week, we talked about the clownfish and the sea anemones and their mutualistic relationship. Does anyone remember what a mutualistic or mutualism means? The clownfish and sea anemone is an example. Victoria, go ahead and take a shot.
I think it means that they both need each other to survive, and if, let's say, one went or one got extinct, the other one wouldn't live or would have to really adapt to live.
Close. Mutualistic means that they both benefit. So the clownfish benefits by living with the sea anemone, and the sea anemone benefits having the clownfish live with him. All right, so here is a sample food chain from a coral reef. Go ahead and take a look at this for a second, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about it. So if you're looking at a food chain is showing us what eats other things. So for example, this food chain is showing me that an octopus eats a starfish. What is another relationship that I can read off of this sample food chain? The octopus eats a starfish. Give me another example. Victoria.
The zooplankton gets eaten by the coral.
Awesome job. The zooplankton is eaten by the coral. Great. So coral reefs are very sensitive, and there's a couple of major threats to coral reefs. The first one is pollution in the ocean. Okay, as the water chemistry changes, the successfulness of the coral reef changes. Dredging off the coast. When big piles of dirt and piles are taken off of the bottom, it just can disrupt the coral reefs. Another danger, give me 1 second, Mallory, is people are careless sometimes when they collect coral specimens. If you find coral that is bleached or white laying on the beach, you can go ahead and take it. However, if you're scuba diving or snorkeling and you go ahead and take live coral off of the coral reef, it takes a very long time for that coral to replace itself. Okay? Coral only grows 1 inch a year. So for every inch of coral that you take, you are taking a year's worth of life away from that coral reef. So a little bit is really a lot. Go ahead, Mallory. What was your question?
Why do people have to put toxic stuff in gases instead of the ocean? Why can't they not put it somewhere else?
I don't know. That's a great question. Unfortunately, a lot of people dump things in the ocean, or even if you don't dump something in the ocean, if you spill something on your driveway or on the beach, it finds its way into the ocean through the watershed. So unfortunately, that happens. She asked Brayden why people pour things or dump things in the ocean. And unfortunately, there's no good answer to that question. It would be great if people would not do that. So that was our warm marine ecosystem. Now we are going to completely switch gears, and we are going to look at a cold ecosystem. We are going to check out the polar seas. So we are going to take a journey to the polar seas, and I'm going to try my camera one last time and see if I can't get it to work. All right, we're going to leave my camera off for now. And we are going to travel to the polar regions of the world. We are going to look at specific plants and animals that are found in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. So, the Arctic regions, maybe you're a little confused about what that means or where I am referring to. The Arctic regions are the area within the the red circle up here. Inside this red circle is marine water areas and land areas. Both are considered part of the Arctic region. Yep, Russia and Canada are both in the Arctic region. Now, one of the animals that lives in the Arctic region is the tundra, or the whistling swan. Would anyone like to read this who has not read yet? Haley. Haley, go ahead. Brayden, you can read the next slide. Make sure you hold your talk button down. It came on quick and I heard you for a second and then you popped away.
Before the ballpoint or fountain pen, the quills of the whistling swans were a common implement for writing. Thousands of these birds were killed for their feathers, and the whistling swan was driven almost to extinction. However, because of their isolation, Arctic populations have persisted.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Braden, go ahead and read about the herring gull.
The herring gull. One of the largest members of the family. Monogama nesting on rocky coastlines. Cosmopolitan eating habits. Have a good memory for predators.
All right, very good. So these herring gulls, if you live near the ocean, go ahead and just read the slide then, Haley, if you couldn't understand what she was saying. Herring gulls, if you live near the ocean, you probably have seen these gulls. They're not only in the Arctic, they're common along most coasts. They have a very good memory for predators, and they're eaten a lot by sharks. So if a herring gull knows that predators like to live or circle around a certain beach, they tend to stay away. So they are very smart in that sense. Another cool animal that lives in the Arctic is the Arctic tern. Anyone wants to read this one? Mallory, go ahead.
Only species migrating from Arctic to Antarctic live in large colonies. 100 or more pairs can dive up to 10 meters to feet. They can live 30 years or more.
Thank you very much. Now, there's a big word in here, and it says they're the only species to migrate from the Arctic to the Antarctic. We talked about migrating when we talked about whales. Does anyone remember what migrate means, or migrating? Mallory, go ahead. What does migrating mean?
Moving to another place and then back.
Very good. Moving somewhere or another place and then back. Animals can migrate for different reasons. Sometimes they migrate because the temperature becomes too cold or too warm where they are living. Sometimes animals migrate because they need a different food source. Sometimes animals migrate to find mates. So there's lots of reasons that animals can migrate. The Arctic tern makes an extremely long migration. Braden, go ahead. What was your question? That's okay. Not a big deal. Well, the military isn't a true migration because in order to be a migration, it's an animal people can migrate that goes somewhere and then comes back to the same spot every year. So if you were, for example, you lived in Maine, and every winter you went to Florida. In the spring, you came back to Maine. Next winter, you went to Florida. That would be migrating. But if you just move around a lot, that's not truly migrating. But that's great that you're trying to make those connections to your everyday life. So let's take a look at the migration of the Arctic tern. The Arctic tern likes to take long distance trips. The distance of their flight is 6,165 miles, which is super, super long. They follow a couple of different migration routes or patterns, which are depicted by these green arrows. And they do this every year. They move back and forth. Okay, and we are going to skip ahead a couple here, and we are going to look at one of my son's favorite animals, which is the Greenland shark. Victoria, I think your hand was up to read. Go ahead, Victoria.
Greenland shark. Largest fish in the northern waters. Scientific name, Somnus microcephalus, the tiny-headed sleeper. Swims so slowly, often difficult to tell whether or not it's alive. This immense shark is a scavenger, shearing huge hunks of flesh, dead seals and whales, or munching on the remains of dead fish or other marine organisms.
Awesome, thanks a lot. Now this is a little cartoony picture of a Greenland shark, but they are very large. Here is a real picture of a Greenland shark. They move very, very slowly. They are a species of shark that is not very well studied because they do live so deep and in such far areas of the ocean. Now, we looked at a food chain of the coral reef. Now let's look at a food web. Okay, guys, if we could go ahead and stop in the text chat. Every time you guys type something, it beeps. So let's take a look at the coastal and marine Arctic food web. A food chain is one set of animals that eats this, eats this, eats this, eats this in a straight line. A food web is like a spider's web. It is a mix of animals that kind of all eat each other. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Arctic food web. We're going to look at the polar cod. The polar cod is in the middle of the Arctic food web. The Arctic cod eats amphipods, but it is eaten by ringed seals. Who can come up with a food chain that has 3 animals from this food web? So 3 animals in a row that are connected by the arrows. Haley, go ahead.
The mussels are eaten by the duck, which is eaten by the Arctic fox.
Very good. Perfect. Does someone else want to come up with an example of a food chain? Victoria, go ahead.
The polar bear eats the ringed seal, and the and the seal eats the seal eats the benthic fish.
Very good. That was perfect. Does anyone else want to come up with an example? All right. Great job. Okay, now we are going to come up with your own food web. Okay, I want you to come up with a food chain or a food web. I'm unlocking your whiteboard now so that everyone can write. It does not need to be a marine food web. I just want you to come up with a food web. So for example, my food chain or food web, I'm going to do a food chain, is going to be grass is eaten by rabbits, which is eaten by coyotes, which are eaten by bears. Go ahead and come up with a food chain or a food web. Okay, try to have 2, 3, or 4 animals in your food chain. All right, these are some awesome food chains. We have oh no, someone's got deleted. Seagrass to sea turtle to shark, very good. A leaf is eaten by a caterpillar, which turns into a butterfly. We're going to add to this one. Oops. Which is eaten by a bird. Oh, go ahead, whoever that is. You can go ahead and finish that one. We'll switch over here. We have grasshoppers eaten by bunnies. Bunnies are eaten by foxes, and foxes can be eaten by coyote. Worms are eaten by birds, which are eaten by larger birds. Very good. Okay, and we'll let this final one written. We don't draw on the whiteboard, please. Here we can add eaten by a bird. Very good. All right, great job on the food chains. Now, oh, and then I see one that just got added up here, fish, seals, shark. Oh, it's moving. Fish, seals, and sharks. Great job. Well, we are going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up one more thing about the Arctic and Antarctic, and that is I want to briefly talk about penguins. Now, there's a couple of different types of penguins, and we're going to look at them just real simple now just because I think they are a cool animal. So here we have a macaroni penguin. They are the most numerous of all the world's penguins, with an estimated population of over 9 million breeding pairs. They breed on a peninsula and on many outlying islands. The emperor penguin is the largest, and it is found only on the mainland. And here's a picture of the two of the types of penguins. And here we have the Adelaide penguins. These are the penguins that you see at SeaWorld or at an aquarium most of the times. Adelaide penguins are the most studied penguin. They are named after an area of a peninsula called Adelaide Land. They are very conspicuous. They have very good camouflage from predators. And there are an estimated 2.5 million pairs of Adelaide penguins. Yeah, I know you can't see me. My camera's not working. Or the connection's not working. And king penguins are the last type we're going to look at quickly. Like emperor penguins, king penguins make no nest, and instead they lay a single egg of around 310 grams, which they hold on their feet for the entire incubation period. Does anyone remember what that fancy word incubation means? We talked about it last week when we talked about sea turtles. Haley, go ahead.
It's where you can like keep the babies warm in a warm temperature so they'll hatch correctly.
All right, great. It's when the eggs are kept warm. The incubation period is the amount of time it takes from the time the egg was laid to the time that the egg hatches. So for king penguins, that's about 55 days. Now, king penguins and emperor penguins do something that's unique, and instead of building a nest like a bird to put its eggs in, they keep their eggs on their feet. This is a neat adaptation to them. They breed in very cold places where there is not a lot of plant material to make nests, and where their egg really needs the body temperature of the penguin in order to help keep it warm. So what they do is they hold the egg on the tops of their feet and keep it warm. Victoria, you have a question? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Victoria. I didn't hear you.
Is the brown kind of fluffy thing a maturing maturing penguin that is turning into an adult?
It certainly is. That was a great observation. Yes, the little brown fuzzball in the middle here is a juvenile king penguin that will mature to look like one of the adults that are in the back. Good job. Now, we only have one more week of class. Next week is our last week of class. So what I would like to do is we are going to do my favorite homework assignment for homework this week. I'm going to put it up on your whiteboard. This is a picture that I drew during class this morning, so don't laugh at my picture. And go ahead and make your whiteboard, or I'm sorry, not your whiteboard. Make your PowerPoint screen larger, and you may have to click on the tab that says Documents, or you may see the picture up here. Your homework assignment is on the left-hand side. It says create your own marine creature. We have talked about all different types of marine creatures. We have talked about sharks, seals, sea lions, whales, sea turtles, bony fish, invertebrates. We have talked about all different types of sea creatures. Now you get to create your sea creature based on what you have learned. You will need to draw a picture. You can either do a drawing or you can draw something on the computer. You need to write a description of your animal. Where does it live? What does it eat? Who eats it? Why do you like it? And any special features about your animal. My picture, as over here, I am not a very good artist, as you can tell. My animal is called an elefish, and this is what I wrote about my elefish. This is the type of thing I am expecting from you. If you draw your picture, you can take a picture and email it to me or upload it into Moodle, or you can scan it into Moodle. Completely up to you, whatever is easier. So this is my paragraph about my elefish I drew. My animal is called an elefish. My elefish is gray and white so that it camouflages in the ocean. It has a long trunk like an elephant to help it eat food off the bottom of the ocean. It swims very slow, has a large tail and dorsal fin to help keep its balance. It lives in shallow waters so it can easily see its prey. Its prey, that should say, includes crabs, mollusks, and amphipods. It is eaten by large sharks and marine mammals. I like the elefish because it combines two of my favorite things, elephants and fish. And that is what you are going to do for homework. You can be as creative as you want for this assignment.